While throughout the history of buses, there have been successful ones that have had tens of thousands produced. But only one bus attempted global domination of the world bus market to be in more places than any other bus ever. This is the story of the Leyland Royal Tiger Worldmaster, the bus that wanted to take over the planet. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, when you take a look at the entire history of buses, there have been those models that have had tens of thousands of them built. Now, as you have just seen, the Icarus 260 had over 72,000 built, and the GM New Look bus had nearly 45,000 of them built. However, those buses were basically confined to certain parts of the world. The Icarus 260 was mainly in the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union, and the GM New Look bus was only in the United States and Canada. Now, in the mid to late 1950s, Leyland decided to design and build a new type of bus that can be sold anywhere and operate in any country on Earth. And so they came up with the Worldmaster. Now, what is really interesting about the Worldmaster is that it probably did operate in more places in the world than any other bus, and it had a greater variety of bodywork than any other bus that has ever existed, which makes it really interesting. So let's get started in taking a look at the Leyland Worldmaster. Could there have been a bus that would take over the world? Leyland certainly did make a bold attempt with its Worldmaster, and while it may not have been the most numerous bus ever built, it's possible it had existed in more locales and had more body styles than any other bus in history while it was in production. Succeeding the Leyland Royal Tiger underfloor-engined heavyweight single-decker bus and single-decker coach chassis, which sold more than 6,000 units from 1950 to 1956, was not an easy task, but Leyland answered it with the Royal Tiger Worldmaster. It retained a substantial steel ladder frame chassis, dropped in the wheelbase and overhangs, and arched over the axles, to which operators could fit a body of their choice. A Leyland 0680H horizontal engine was often fitted, mounted at the middle of the chassis frame. It would drive back through a pneumocyclic semi-automatic gearbox to an overhead worm rear axle. Steering was via a worm and nut mechanism. The smaller volume 0.600H was optional, but rarely chosen. Sales ran from 1954 to 1979, by which time more than 20,000 had been built, making it Leyland's most successful bus. In comparison, by 1985, approximately 17,000 Leyland Atlanteans had been built, and Leyland Leopard sales terminated in 1983 after deliveries totaled over 12,000. In global terms, only the Icarus 260 and 280, Bedford SB, GM Old Look and New Look buses, and the Mercedes-Benz 0303 beat the Worldmaster for overall sales. The Worldmaster was an undeniable success for Leyland and an aptly named model. Leyland coded the Worldmaster with the letters RT. Export versions were prefixed with E, unless they had a low ground clearance frame, which was prefixed C, which was designed for paved road markets, which required lower step heights, and so this had a different method of spring attachment to give the lower height. Left-hand drive Worldmasters were either LERT or LCRT. The Worldmaster was built in the following lengths. Number 1. Model RT1, with a wheelbase of 20 feet or 6.10 meters, a minimum length of 35 feet or 10.67 meters, and a maximum length of 12 meters or 39 feet 4.5 inches. Number 2. Model RT2, with a wheelbase of 18 feet 6 inches or 5.64 meters, with a minimum length of 33 feet or 10.06 meters, and a maximum length of 11 meters or 36 feet 1 inch starting in 1962. Number 3. Model RT3 with a wheelbase of 16 feet 2 inches or 4.93 meters with a length of 30 feet, and it was the only type marketed in the UK. The total number of all combinations offered by Leyland for the Worldmaster totaled 11. Very few Worldmasters were sold in the United Kingdom. Glasgow Corporation took 30 RT3/1 buses from 1956 with Wayman body frames finished by the corporation's workforce over the next 2 years. Halifax Corporation took 10 with Wayman bodies in the same year. Other than these 2 batches, the only home market orders for Worldmasters were for the RT3/2 coach version, which attracted a small band of devoted followers comprising Gilderways of Smethwick, Smith Tours of Wigan, and Ellen Smith coaches of Rochdale. Gilderways used Harrington coach bodies, while the Lancashire operators had Plaxton body their vehicles. The RT3/2 was withdrawn from home market sale in 1961 and the RT3/1 in 1964. North America and the UK were the only areas in the world in the 1960s and 1970s where a passenger was unlikely to ride a Worldmaster. Israel was the largest market with more than 5,000 in service, and most of them had locally built bodies. More than 3,600 chassis were built at the Leyland Ashdod plant in Israel. They served as interurban and urban buses as well as coaches and even as trucks. Many were rebodied during the 1980s. In India, Portugal, and Spain, examples even had double-deck bodies fitted. Almost all markets produced their own styles and makes of coachwork. For example, Casaro of Italy produced a Ghia-styled coach on an LERT2 with a flamboyant grille, ribbed anodized aluminum skirt panels, and large tail fins. This was reproduced as Matchbox Toys No. 40 Leyland Royal Tiger coach. Other globally notable coach builders to body Worldmasters include DAB, Hey Argaz, and Merkavim in Israel, Jonker, Van Hool, Marco Polo, Custom Coaches, and New Zealand Motor Bodies. One noteworthy customer of the Israeli-bodied variants was the ITB of Bucharest, Romania, which took delivery of buses in 1968 to 1969. This was seen as symbolic of Romanian defiance against Soviet policies at the time. Rhodesian Railways specified a 6x2 version of the Worldmaster with Leyland Albion non-reactive suspension for the rear axle. By 1960, Leyland South Africa developed a version of the Worldmaster with a front vertical engine, but this was discontinued after the 1962 merger with AEC in favor of the stronger-selling AEC Kudu. A number of Worldmasters were rebodied, including those owned by Ellen Smith, CIE in Ireland, and Eged in Israel. MTT in Perth, Western Australia, rebodied their 1957 Worldmaster Fleet No. 21 in 1967, and the bus remained in service until 1982. MTT 21 is now preserved in original livery as a traveling museum known as Shark in a Bus, containing a preserved 5-meter-long great white shark. Some former Glasgow Worldmasters were sold to Australia in the early 1970s, extended to 11 meters, and rebodied. Many former Australian Public Transport Commission and State Transport Authority Worldmasters, upon withdrawal, were rebodied by private operators, including Brisbane Bus Lines, Deanne's Coaches, Delwood Coaches, Fierns Coaches, Menai Bus Service, Toongabbie Transport, Ventura Bus Lines, and West Bus up until the mid-1980s. Many operated into the 2000s, and a few were still in service in 2014. Non-bus variants of the Worldmaster also existed. a 12-foot 6-inch or 3.81 meter wheelbase version of the Worldmaster with an 0.680H engine was sold from 1958 to fire appliance builders as the Leyland Firemaster. Only Manchester and Glasgow fire brigades really took to the idea, and the project was dropped by 1962 to 1963 as it had proved unprofitable. There was also a Worldmaster that was built as a Grand Prix car transporter. By the mid-1970s, Leyland was losing global bus and truck sales, particularly to Mercedes-Benz, Scania, and Volvo, and tied down by the deadweight of the British Leyland car division, no funds were available for an updated replacement for the Worldmaster. It was replaced by the Leyland Leopard in 1979. The last Worldmasters were bodied in the early 1980s, and some are still in service. And so, there ends the story of one of the most numerous buses of all time, the Leyland Royal Tiger Worldmaster. So, there it is, the story of the Leyland Worldmaster. Now, one thing to note here is that it's not so simple to do a video on the Worldmaster. And the reason why is that there were so many Worldmasters produced with so many variations, especially in the bodywork, that it's impossible to capture every single Worldmaster in this video. So if you have a favorite Worldmaster that you know of, and it was not shown in this video, I apologize for that. I'm very sorry I could not get every single Worldmaster into this little documentary. But if you know of one that you like very much, let us know in the comments, and maybe I'll eventually do a follow-up video on the Worldmaster. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Leyland Worldmaster. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.